What's up?
What's up?
How's it going?
We're back on Snackcast.
Yeah, regular scheduled time.
Regular scheduled time. So we're gonna get back on the mineral train, right? Vitamins, and now we're on the minerals. Yesterday was phosphorus. Today is sodium.
Yep. Quick question: good or bad?
Good.
Because you did a little homework on it.
Well, no. So in fairness, I didn't get to do near the homework. Kevin's running lead on this one.
I know what he's talking about.
I did not stay at a Holiday Inn, but I did watch a TED Talk. But yeah, I really, my TED Talk actually was kind of strange. And I'll get to that later. But I think inherently I do know that salt is good. I believe most of the preaching about salt, less salt to lower your blood pressure, blah, blah, blah. Well,
yeah, you're spot on.
Most of the salt we get ain't even salt.
Salt, right. We'll get to that in a minute. But salt is the salt of the earth, right? But salt is actually very, very good for you, and it gets a bad rap, right? So there's two studies that actually were done. One was called the DASH sodium study, and what I heard was they really kind of messed up the study because they changed the dietary functions. They lowered the sugar intake of a lot of the users. And in fact, the users didn't end up with high blood pressure. They ended up with low blood pressure in that study. That was only one study that was done. Another study of over 6,000 participants showed no correlation between sodium and high blood pressure at all. So sodium is an essential mineral. It is very important to bodily functions. If you don't get it, you get fatigue, headaches, muscle twitches, cramps, irritability. They even say if you're having one of those days, like the world stinks, take a pinch of salt.
Just one of those days when you don't want to wake up.
Right, it'll change your outcome. Just a little pinch of salt, and you'll start to feel better about yourself. Mental fogginess and mental weakness are some of the deficiencies.
Makes sense. I remember in Liza, My Doctor Told Me, he talks about it in the book, and he said, there's very few things that Mother Nature or wildlife, whatever you want to call it, seek out. Right? We've talked about how the snakes go for the eggs and they never go for the milk, right? That nature doesn't, outside of infant cattle, they don't want milk. Right. Right? And he makes kind of that similar correlation that, salt licks that they put out for cows and for horses, and, that for an animal to naturally want to consume it,
right,
probably tells you it's not that bad for you.
Right. Yeah. And like, excuse me, like everything else, getting enough salt, getting enough sodium, you have to take about 1,000 milligrams a day. Right. And I think you mentioned earlier, what is it that you're actually, so that's like a half a teaspoon of salt if you take that. But you mentioned,
is it really just that little bit?
Yeah.
Nice.
But you have, in order to get 1,000, it's that's all not going to be absorbed. So it's very similar to other minerals. Like in order to get 1,000 milligrams, you actually got to take more than that. But you mentioned it before. It's like you want real salt, right? Would you say that not this crap that's in the food or whatever?
Well, so I would point number one to processed food. That salt, as phosphorus, is used a lot as a preservative. And I don't know this. I would speculate that it's some chemical concoction of sodium biocarbonate or something, that it's not pure salt. So I think processed food's probably delivering a lot of sodium that may not be the optimal source.
You're on to something here.
Am I?
Yeah,
okay.
You actually are. Like a lot of fast food can reduce, this goes against conservative thinking, right? A lot of fast food can actually reduce the sodium in your body. And it's not because it actually reduces the sodium so much, is it reduces potassium, and potassium and sodium work hand in hand. So like you actually have to have about, I think it's 6 times the amount of potassium as you do sodium in order for them to work in concert with each other. And when you eat a lot of fast food, you're not getting that potassium. You're actually getting sodium depletion, right? So it's really, really kind of interesting, right? So like, oh, yeah, at McDonald's, I'm getting plenty of sodium. Lots of salt on my French fries. Not so much, man. Right. Not so fast, my friend.
Didn't we do a snack cast on salt? That might have been when you were out. Jerry, was that me and you that did pink salt, Himalayan salt? And he is nodding his head. Yeah, so it was I don't even remember, but like Himalayan salt's supposed to be the best because it gets all these other minerals pulled into it. But anyways, back to the fast food. Yeah, I imagine that's probably not even a naturally found fat. It's a laboratory. I'm sorry, not fat, salt. Right. Laboratory salt.
Right. So one of the things that the doctors always tell you is to reduce fluid retention, lower your salt intake. And again, that goes back to don't so much lower your salt intake, increase your potassium intake. And trying to get it up to that 6-to-1 ratio, and you'll start to remove fluids from the body. The last thing that you want to do, according to Ken Berry, mentioned this one, is the last thing you want to do is reduce the salt intake. Well,
and again, I think it depends on what kind of diet you're eating. If you're eating whole foods,
probably not as necessary. You don't have the deficiency, right?
Well, dump it on there.
No, dump it on there, right? But you're probably also not having the deficiencies in a lot of the minerals anyway.
Gotcha.
So
it's twofold. The fast food causes potassium issues, which causes sodium depletion. Whole foods naturally don't have a lot of sodium in them, so salt them up. But what did Dr. Dom say? Vegetables are nothing more than fat delivery vehicles.
Yeah,
Can we call them fat?
But again, what vegetables? I think Berg said this. Eric Berg said this. Vegetables
we don't talk about him.
Do I? He mentioned something about the vegetables, like getting your 6 servings of vegetables every day is a great source of potassium. So that's where the two of those work hand in hand.
Salt up that broccoli, buddy.
Yeah. So, if you don't get enough, I mean, you could have, and it's not just so you don't feel good. If you don't get enough sodium, you could have real problems. Low blood pressure and heart failure are two of the, Hey, congratulations. So if your doctor tells you get off the salt, this is very similar to a conversation we've had over and over again. Look deeper for the problem.
So let me ask you from a biomechanical, you forced me to do a half marathon some odd years ago, and they had salt packets out. It was forced. No, they had salt packets out on the course. That's the longest race I've ever done. You've done Ironman events and other things, but why is salt in that environment?
It prevents cramping is predominantly the issue. They do that. Remember they used to do smelling salts
because you're sweating so much,
football,
I guess,
for concussions and all kinds of it's but they, it's an electrolyte. It's part of an electrolyte, and getting those electrolytes back in your system helps.
I got you.
Gatorade.
So let me share with you the little bit that I did not learn from my TED Talk. Frankly, it was one of those that I'd probably need to watch
You said it was a little weird, right?
3 times to connect all the dots because the guy was smarter than I am. And he would go, therefore,
he was
this.
officially chimpanzee status.
And I'm like, how did he get there, right? But he said one of the hard things about salt and salt intake and how we expel it and pee it out and store it, and he said it's very difficult to do because you have to control the inputs, which is the food and the drink, and measure the outputs, which is the urine predominantly.
Yeah.
Right? And he said no one wants to do that for more than a couple days. So a lot of these studies they literally study someone for a couple of days, right? He said Russia, northeast of Russia, of Moscow, they took like 13 dudes and simulated space flight. And other researchers were like, this is a great time to study salt because we're going to control exactly what they're going to take, and we're going to measure, analyze everything that comes out. Right. And again, this is where I kind of started getting lost, but people think that salt equals water bloat, and he said that's true over 24 to 48 hours. But if you continue with the experiment, the body levels out. It does not actually cause water bloat. It causes water conservation within the kidneys, right? And why is that? Because the salt and some other food helps the liver create urea, which helps the kidneys function correctly. It was really like, deep dive. I didn't have the time to understand it all. But the simulation of an astronaut type of experiment where you can actually control all the variables over months is the only way to really start figuring this stuff out.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. Because what can you do?
Right. You can't control group this.
And measure all the pee in the urine. Right.
Well, how you measure it coming out of your skin?
Right. So that's what I learned, which, like I said, amounted to not much knowledge, but a lot of sitting there going, I think that's, again, I think it's going back to anything that we talk about here, which is basically look for, if somebody's telling you got a high blood pressure and you got to cut back on the salt, look for other issues, look for other problems. That's just a symptom. There is a problem going on. Yep. And probably reducing, again, we're not a doctor, but probably reducing the salt is not going to be the core of the problem. Right.
Yeah. Highly doubtful, unless you're taking spoonfuls of salt, that you got over salted, Yeah. Yeah.
Anything else?
You can reduce. There's a big kick right now about drinking all kinds of water, right? Make sure you fill 8 glasses of water a day, blah, blah, blah. I doubt you're low on sodium, but there are people who literally drink too much water, and it takes the salt out of the system. It purges the system. So, that's a little bit of hype on, how much is enough water? Well, drink when you get thirsty, right? Right. How much is enough salt? Well, your body will crave salt when you need it. I mean, it's pretty intuitive. So, hey, sometimes reaching for that bag of chips ain't the worst thing in the world.
But reach for some salted almonds or
sunflower seeds.
Yeah. It would be kind of a better option.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. It's not a license to go eat chips all the time.
Woohoo!
Right.
Right.
So, anyway, that's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Nice work. Questions, comments, concerns, hit us at snackcast@yes.fit.
Stay salty.
See ya.